Welcome to the Marketing Clarity Podcast, the show that still hasn't quite figured out what to get you for Christmas, so you're probably going to get a Chipotle gift card. I'm Ross Erosion, a marketing coach who works with small businesses and solopreneurs to take that first step to marketing clarity by creating their actionable, customized marketing and content plan. You can learn more about that at getmarketingclarity.com. Today, I'm joined by a co-host, Mrs. Kayla Knob.
Hello.
Hey, Kayla. What's going on?
Hey,
Hello.
not a whole lot. Just hanging out.
Wow. Yeah, it's the end of the year as we record this, and it's the first episode of Hot Takes with Kayla. So you've been upgraded. It's like you normally, when we're on a show, I fly you economy, right? Like you're literally in with the luggage and like
I'm staying at the extended stay by the airport, okay? It's not fancy. That's fine.
But in this show, you're flying coach, baby. Yeah. So because
Right.
I've talked about this on previous episodes that Kayla has been awesome enough to join and be a guest on, is that Kayla is just a baller on Twitter. And so when I see exceptional work, I always want to bring it to you, my faithful listener or watcher. And if you're watching this, just remember you can also listen to it on the podcast, and you can learn more about that podcast at Marketing Clarity Podcast. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, you can watch the video. We're here, right here on video on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/tricycle creative. And if you're smelling this episode, you might want to check and see if your house has a gas leak, because that is problematic if you're smelling this episode. So,
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're going to do on Hot Takes with Kayla is I have selected some just really great tweets of Kayla's from the last couple of weeks, and I want to present them to you.
Yeah.
And I just want to talk about it. And because I think just by nature of our conversation and where even like your head was at when this went out, I think we'll get just a ton of great learnings for all you small business marketers out there and content creators and all that good stuff. So Kayla, are you ready?
Yes. Let's do it.
All right. Before we get started, be sure to follow Kayla on Twitter at Kayla
Yes.
Knob, N-A-A-B. Kayla, N-A-A-B.
That's right.
Okay, here we go. First tweet I'm pulling out. Pa, pa, pa.
Yeah.
Okay, now here's my question to you, Kayla.
Yeah.
For the listening audience. Do you want me to read these tweets? Like inside the actor studio where, the host would read, or do you want to narrate the tweets as yourself, as they've been written?
How about you tee them up and then we'll talk about them?
Okay.
I'll let you read them. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Give it to us.
Okay, hold on. Did you hear that crack open?
Wow.
I'm drinking,
Yes.
I'm very on brand. I'm drinking a fruitcake Mountain Dew drink.
Dr.
Yeah,
Pepper.
wow. It has a blast.
Spicy.
It has a blast. I just got blasted in the mouth with artificial fruitcake flavor, and I love it. Okay, here's the tweet. What state are you in as a November ends again? Okay, and this was a poll.
Yes.
Option 1. You can play along at home. Option 1, holiday limbo confusion. Option 2, burnt out and tired. Option 3, fully hyped for 2023. And option 4, I don't know, man, just surviving. So while you're watching, listening, yeah.
Yeah. So clock in your votes, but the majority was the last one. I don't know, man. I'm just surviving. So we did have a lot of people vote in the poll. I would vote, so I didn't vote in my own poll, but I would probably vote fully hyped for 2023.
Really?
I think the last 2 years have been rough. Yes,
Wow.
I'm
I'm
ready for it.
excited for you.
And that was actually, yeah, I mean, that was the impetus for the tweet. So I wanted to know what people were thinking as we get to the end of the year, especially business owners. That's mostly who I'm talking to, business owners, freelancers, people like us. Um, a lot of us are tired by this point in the year. And I've been tweeting about it a lot because I've been seeing people say, stop talking about business. It's Christmas time. Just enjoy the holiday. Well, we don't all have that luxury. So I like to check in with everybody. I'm fully hyped. I have a plan. I have a strategy. I'm ready to go. But these other options are valid, right? A lot of people that I'm talking to, a lot of my clients are not sure what to do about holiday content this year. Kind of stuck between the limbo of Black Friday and Christmas and all of that stuff. A lot of
Do you
people are
think
burnt
that
out.
limbo,
Um,
they're torn as a marketer between the whole holiday, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or as just a consumer, or both?
all,
Yeah.
both and all. I think people are also overwhelmed with just the way of the world right now. There's, some
Yep.
economic downturn, there's some political stuff. I think it just comes to a head at the end of the year. Then you've got the other half of the media putting the pressure on you to already have your shit together for January.
Yeah.
Well, some of us just don't. That's okay too. So, whether you are in full planning mode or in full Christmas mode, I respect you. I respect your hustle.
I think both, either or, whatever, are valuable, right? I mean, listen, if you're going to take this
Yeah.
time of year and you want to take your foot off the gas, go for it. You know?
If you have that luxury and you've got the cash reserves, by all means do. Yeah.
Totally. And at the same
Not
token,
everybody has to market.
yeah. Yeah. And at the same token, if you're using this time to get, you know, um, that much more ready for Q1 or 2023 or whatever, good on you for that too.
Totally.
Like, I think
Totally.
it's,
And we haven't all closed our doors. There are still
oh,
some of
yeah.
us out here ready to talk about it, ready to do
Yeah,
that work with you for sure.
absolutely. And I think that's where what I want you to take away from this, if you're watching this or listening to this, is that, um, you know, there's no right way. There may be alternative ways. There may be, if you're not happy with your current situation, there may be better ways. But I'm not going to sit here and,
Yeah.
as a marketer and as a marketing coach, tell you there is only one way. That this
No.
end of year is supposed to be dealt with. The thing that I find also mind-boggling on this poll is that, so we had 44% coming in at the I don't know, man, just surviving. And then it's a three-way tie
Yeah.
for all the other
I know.
ones. That's
I mean, between
amazing.
burnout and fully hyped, those are opposite ends of the spectrum. I think the reason for it is exactly what we're talking about. Some people's businesses, this isn't their hot season. They're not a
Yeah.
good Christmas gift, or it's just not really the vibes. So, I'll see you in July. This is my season to rest or my season to be strategic. Um, Everybody's super valid. And then holiday limbo confusion, I think, is true for business owners and true for just everyone. I think we're all just kind of in that stupor of too much food and cold weather, and maybe not for you, but some of us live in cold weather. And
Sorry. Sorry, not
you know,
sorry.
yeah, and I can't hate. I can't hate from outside the club. So
Well, I think also it's one of those where you, for me, the last 30 days have, I have a lot of consultations, not a lot of
yeah,
business though. Because it's people
yeah,
who are like, all right, I want to put a bookend at the end of the year, but they're not
yeah.
quite ready to pull the trigger, or they're going to, oh, now that I have the information, I'll make the decision in January,
Yep.
that kind of
So, and
thing.
really, you could damage yourself then, right, in your business by being too aggressive during this time when your decision makers might not be ready to make decisions.
Mm-mm.
Your decision makers may even be tied to a budget that doesn't drop until January or something like that. So, knowing your industry and the world you're working in would help. But then different attitudes are just different attitudes about this time of year. You know, some people have had their out of office on for a month, and that must be nice.
Hot take number 2. Pow, pow, pow. Need to add a sound
What do you got?
effect. I mean, next show.
Yeah.
I got to add in a sound effect for these, just to really give it some of the oomph that it demands.
Sizzle.
It needs to give it some of that artificial. You know what it needs? It needs like a blast. When these tweets come up, it needs a blast of artificial fruitcake flavor, but like in your ears. You see,
You would
just
think that
like,
this was sponsored, but it's not.
it's not. This is a non-sponsored. Everyone's gonna go out though. Use my promo code. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have a Mountain Dew promo code. Okay, here we go.
That's great.
Okay. Customer isn't always right. However, the customer is your target audience. So, do you change the message, product to better fit an audience that doesn't get it? Do you keep hammering promotion and content to people who aren't engaging? Or do you change your target audience? This one is good. Is so many good questions.
Oh, it's so deep. I know.
It is.
So here's the issue, right? You're sitting there and you're thinking, okay, this is my audience or my customers. They're not happy with something that I posted or something that I launched. What do I need to do here? So maybe you've got a complex product or service, many pieces to it, and your people just aren't getting it. It's not clicking. The value's not clicking. They don't understand it. Or maybe it's just not something people want to buy. It's not priced right. At what point do you concede your business decisions to that audience versus change the audience?
Yeah.
You know, let's say I invented a product that, you know, I thought went to audience A. They don't get it at all. Do I change my product or do I switch it over and market to audience B? Right. And, you know, yeah, that's a challenge. I think you need to look at your metrics, right? So it's like,
Hold on, everyone.
how do we know
Hold
that
on,
it's not
everyone.
working?
Hold on. We just got Kayla to announce you have to take a look at some metrics, and she hates you. I gotcha.
I do.
She does dislike data
I hate
very
data.
much. So if you think I'm not going to sit here and call you on that after, you know, now I know that you're gonna move along and you're gonna say something super smart here. I have no doubt. But this is a place where, and I'm a metrics. I mean, I don't live and die by them, but you know, it's like this is a place where they have some value.
Where numbers matter.
Numbers.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'll totally own up to that. I will totally own up to that. So you have to look at your metrics. Why isn't it working? Are people clicking all over all your content, consuming it, and then not buying your product? Well, then you've got a product problem or you've got a price problem. Your content is there. The people get it. They just don't want it. However, if they're not engaging with your content, they're not clicking through, or they've got tons of comments and questions and it's not coming out clearly, you've got an education problem or a communication about your product problem. Now, either of those things could mean that your audience isn't right. You know, either they're not buying or they're not engaging. Maybe they're not the people for you. Do you need to switch that audience? And how do you do that? And I would ask you that question. What would you do in this situation?
Well, I think here's the one good thing I would say. I think one thing is this doesn't always have to be an either or, right? So I think it's interesting. It's kind of like when you shifting gears, you have to kind of go into neutral, right?
Yeah.
So I think that if you accurately identify this as something that's happening, right? Some disconnect or some that you're experiencing this challenge. That first step, it's just like anything else. It's like first step is acknowledging it, that it's a problem, right? And then the second step is, okay, what can we do to essentially test a different market or test a product? And that's where, do we make either make it totally different updated landing page? Do we do we
Yeah.
update the current landing page because it's just not, there's something off with it, right? But that kind of thing.
Yep.
You can then turn to, because you know how much I love content, is steering your content a certain way, right? Creating content that either, newly announces a product or speaks directly to a different audience, right?
Yes.
And so,
And see how it flows.
correct.
I
I
love
think
that.
that's the good thing about this, and I think that's the. Now you can't hang out necessarily in the gray space forever, right? I think at some point,
Right.
just like you said, I think part of it. Now here's where I'm going to. Yes, data is good here, but I'm also going to say I'm going to go very Kayla on throw data out. Like if you don't like, particularly if you're a small business service provider, if
Yeah.
you don't like working with your audience, with your customers, then I think you should consider trying to identify and work with an audience that you do, right? Because I think that
Yes.
weighs,
Yes.
it's like an albatross. It weighs you down, right? And I think that I have had the experience of working with clients who were not terrible by any means, but they just weren't like
Right.
as good a fit. And when inevitably problems come up or there's an issue or there's a challenge, oftentimes you get a little less inclined to work on that, or you become like really resentful of the client and the work. So I think this is about awareness also. And if you're in a scale, if you're in a if you're in a company or even a small business that has multiple levels and multiple touch points with customers, I think there's also something to talking with those people who have those touch points and see what they have to say, what they're hearing, what information are they getting they can bring back to you.
Totally. Anybody who's on the front lines, if it's not you, should be your first go-to. What questions are you getting? What pushback are you getting on the sales floor or in the customer service environment? Huge point of data, but it's anecdotal data that can actually take you somewhere new. And it's the same thing with your customers. You can ask them. You can ask them directly, hey, does this not make sense? What questions do you have? And then see what you get. And so I think social sentiment's huge here. I think there's a lot of that like soft data that really is probably going to be your most meaningful.
Yeah, I think also, I mean, from my own personal experience, a big change that I made relatively early on was related even to my sales process. And I think that's something that, again, if you're a small business marketer who is also doing your sales, kind of evaluating your sales on a pretty regular basis to see where it can be improved or optimized. And for me, very early on, what I did was I'd have an initial consultation, and then I did what most people do. I would just send them the proposal, you see. And I think the problem with that, when you're working again with my target audience, which is sometimes first-time marketers or small business marketers or people who are not in the marketing world, it's getting a proposal and it's incredibly intimidating. It's full of language and words and terms and things, and almost all of the consultations, the first consultations I do when it comes to talking about price, because it is very important to be transparent about that. A lot of them don't even know where something like what I do starts. Right. And that could be the same with any of you out there with whatever you do. Like, for example, like, if my car breaks down, I need to get a new muffler. I wouldn't even know where to tell you how much a new muffler costs. Like I really have no idea. And I think it's just like that with digital marketing. And maybe it's like that with whatever you're selling. If you're a service provider that people don't even know, it's like, I don't know, like this is what I need, I think, So what I did is I tweaked my sales process where I don't just send a proposal cold, right? I go through a proposal with them. And what I found is that also shrunk down my sales cycle time, right? So I got from
Yeah,
interested to either not interested or buying 3 times as fast, right? So I know this is a
that's
little
huge.
off
And
the
then that
beaten
gives you the
path.
information.
Correct. But I
No, no,
think
it,
this
it
is,
really relates back because then I'm wondering, do you then know more effectively in those proposal presentation meetings that you have, do you get the feedback of why? Right? Because a
yes.
lot of times if you just hand off a proposal and they go, just, ghost you, or they respond and say, no, no, no,
Oh,
that's not for me, you get no information.
yeah.
None as to why. Was it the price? Was it me? Was it the service? Can I tweak this a little bit and make it right for you? Or are you just not my audience? And that's what comes back to this tweet. Really, for me, it's, how do you know? Because there are so many different moving pieces. And,
Yes. Yeah.
I think
And I
that
do.
whether you're marketing or yeah, whether you're marketing or whether you're building a product, it's like there are so many moving pieces to whether or not this is going to work. Tinkering is the only way to know for sure. Asking is the only way to know for sure.
And that's the thing too, is it's an interesting thing doing a sales proposal that way. Which, by the way, on my blog, I actually outline my entire sales process. If you want to go check that out at tricycle-creative.com. On
Nice.
the blog, I outline the entire sales process, everything I use, that kind of thing. But the one thing I do get from
I'm
doing
over
it that
here
way,
looking at
yeah,
it.
she's cheating. No, I'm just kidding. I'll link to it in the description wherever you're listening to this also. So let me make a note of that. Live. This is live radio, live show. No add to notes sales process. Okay, got it. Okay, so what I was going to say is when I do that, whether intentionally or unintentionally, I do ask and I do want that feedback. Do you have questions? Because
Yeah.
that's the other thing too. Do you have questions? Because otherwise it's like, oh, let me email you this question. And then it's like, oh, well, we should schedule a meeting. Like, there's 5 emails that go back and forth, or you're scheduling another meeting to answer those questions. Like,
It's
cut
3
it
weeks
down,
later.
yeah, to
Yeah.
that one meeting, get it straight. And that's the thing also, like, I am an adult. I have been a working adult for a very long time. The people who ghost, you know, I mean, I will say I come out of some of those proposal meetings I have a good feel, between
Yeah.
body language, questions, that kind of thing. But it's
Yeah.
just, yeah, it's like don't ghost people. I can take it, right? If I'm not, like, it's okay. Too
I
expensive?
know.
Okay, that's fine. Don't want to do it right now? That's fine too. It's okay.
Right.
You're not gonna, like, it's fine. Okay.
Right.
So here's the last hot take, brought to you by Mountain Dew
Yeah.
Fruit Quake. It's a flavor blast in your mouth of fruit cake. They're not an official sponsor, by the way. Unofficial.
Yeah.
I'm like a influencer. I'm like a. Can you imagine?
It's cooler. It's underground.
Do you think I would fit in with the other Mountain Dew influencers? Do you think I would? How well do you think I would
Oh yeah.
fit in?
100%.
I don't believe you for a
The
second.
most. Well,
They're,
you live in Florida now, so I feel like you fit right in. It's fine.
that's true, but they're probably all like BMXers and skateboarders.
Oh, you're
And
not? You're not? I thought the tricycle meant that you did
I mean,
BMX. I
I
don't
mean, I
know.
totally am, right? I mean, I am, but totally am. If Mountain Dew's listening, I totally am.
Yeah.
And I can't, I'll prove it to you once you wire me the money. Okay.
The money.
The money for
100%.
being their influencer. Money first, then
That's right.
evidence. Okay. Here we go. What if you planned your content a year in advance? What would you miss out on and what would you gain? I love this.
Oh yeah.
This is so good.
So this is a little more abstract. I really just asked this question not so much like you should think about it and do it, but more from the philosophical perspective of what motivates your content, right? Are you somebody who's just kind of responding to trends, constantly doing whatever the latest reel is or the latest thing is? And what would you miss out on if you just stopped doing that? In the reverse, if you were to plan all of your content a year in advance, schedule it out and forget about it, what would you miss out on in terms of engaging with the community, staying current, how can we predict what's going to happen 8, 9 months from now? We can't. So there's kind of, it's a dichotomy. I think there's pros and cons to being planned in advance. So let's talk about it. Do you plan your content in advance at all? Or are you fly by the seat?
A little bit. A little bit.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
have, I have my monthly, how much I love a good structure and process. So I have a
Yes.
monthly kind of calendar of to-dos. Now, I will say, since I started doing my podcast again, it's a little looser because I somewhat intentionally wanted to do that because I felt like
Yeah.
Tripod, my old podcast, was getting a little stiff. So I'm letting it be a little
Yeah.
looser now with the podcast. But the other things, I have, let me put it this way. I have kind of like category stuff scheduled. So what I mean by that is, okay, I need to
Yeah.
share a owned piece of content, which is, and just
Yeah.
for anyone out there curious about this is one part of my marketing clarity program. So if you want to learn more, you can, again, go to Get Marketing Clarity. One part of it is all about content clarity. So I have, like owned, okay, I want to share that.
Yes.
And then it's like, okay, maybe curated. And then I also want to make sure that when I do one piece of content, that it gets distributed a number of different ways. So I get the most juice for the squeeze.
Totally.
So doing this video,
Yep.
this video is, okay, I'll be on the tube. I'll make a cut for social media. I'll share it in email. I'll share it inside my community,
Yep.
That kind of thing. Like, so that as someone who works on their marketing and has to work in their business, I'm being very effective and efficient with my content. So in that way I do
Yeah.
schedule, but I'm not a, like, okay, I have everything down to a T. It's like, oh, this week I have
Yeah.
everything scheduled and things like that. So it's more like, all right, I know I
No.
I want to do these things. And mine is working out more of in a monthly fashion, right?
Yep.
Because I think that's
Yep.
just more realistic for a lot of small business marketers than trying to do like a weekly, like every week, like just
Right.
a longer timeline, that kind of thing. What about you?
Totally. So I don't schedule 90% of my stuff, but like you, there are like more campaign or more like tight to the funnel type things that I'll schedule. So right now I'm running a 31 days of marketing strategy across my socials. That's scheduled. That's been scheduled for all months so that none of them miss. But most of the time, any of the tweets you ever see, they're live. And a lot of that is because I found, and I think a lot of my social media marketing type friends that know more than I do about social, I found that it's such a living organism. The Twitter of yesterday is not the Twitter of today, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
so on. And so like you kind of have to be aware of where your content is steeping. What is the soup that it
Totally.
falls into? And you can't know that if you're scheduling months in advance. However, I do think, just to put, kind of the devil's advocate on it, having a content vision for the year, quarterly, I kind of want to go here and I want to go there and I want to get more on this platform or more on, do more stuff with collabs or whatever it is. You do want to get ahead of it because it takes some time, right? It takes some lead
Yeah.
up to get partners
Particularly to your
involved or
point
to
about campaigns, right? Or promos or
totally.
sales or things like that, where you
Yeah.
can have these kind of pillars, if you will, throughout the year. It's like, okay, well, this is something
Yep.
I have to work on in advance, because it's going to require a lead
Yep.
in, this type of content, this kind of thing. And then
Totally.
filling in the gaps in between. I got to say though, if you were going to tell
Yep.
me, if you're going to sit here and be like, oh yeah, my Twitter is all pre-planned out, I would have
That'd be
done a
insane.
spit take with Mountain Dew, Fruitquake, a new beverage, seasonal. Enjoy it.
And
I would have done a spit take because that's why I love your Twitter so much. And I think that's why I encourage so many people to follow you, because you 100% do Twitter right. Like, you do Twitter in
Yeah.
that it's not just like, I mean, even it's a crutch that I fall into, but even in a way where it's not like, I'm going to schedule out a link to a blog post. Like it just, that was the Twitter of old. It's not, Twitter is all
I know.
about
And I hated
conversation
it.
and engagement. And so it's
Yes.
not,
And I'll be honest, I'm not amazing at Instagram. I like Instagram because I like images and pictures and stuff, but like I'm not good at it because it requires a completely different ethos of thought that I'm not willing to put in. And so, wrapping this concept up too, I really think every business owner who's using social intentionally needs to choose a platform to love and then choose platforms to like and to give a little extra stuff to. Twitter is my baby, right? But then all of the other platforms get whatever's left over and whatever I feel like giving them. And I think that's totally fine. So no, I don't recommend planning content a year in advance, but I do think it's an interesting thought exercise for what motivates your content. And that's something you should know the answer to.
there's a lot of those floating around right now also, like the plan your social, your whole years of social. And just because I'm
In 3
curious,
hours, it's like,
because I'm
don't.
curious for my clients, and I'm just curious. I'm like, okay, let me see what this is all about. I'll sign up for the lead
Yeah.
magnet and I'll get it. And then it's like, it's all of those, or not all, most of those just hammy things around. And I'm not going to say they don't have a place, but around like Holland, St. Patrick's Day. And it's like, now I'm not going to say that doesn't have a place. You can make that stuff your own 100%, but that can't be exclusively.
No, if you're using a like quirky holidays calendar to plan your socials, it's very rudimentary. There's good stuff, holiday stuff or trends or any of that stuff,
But I
but
think even like
what do
holiday
you really want to
stuff
say?
and quirky stuff, it almost gets back to your product and service and how closely it aligns to those things, right? Like
Is that on brand for you at all?
Totally.
Yes.
Like if you are a custom cookie maker, right? Listen, use all the real and made up holidays.
Light it up.
And light it up, baby.
Yes.
Boom, 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 right? But I don't know what I'm going to do around.
I'm like barely festive anyway. So.
Yes. I don't know what I'm going to do around the one of 6 national hamburger days. Other than I'm going to go out and eat a hamburger and, maybe I'll take a picture of it because I'm maybe, yeah.
Perpetually online. Yeah.
Because that's just what I do, right?
But
I love this because I think this is if you're gonna, push comes to shove. You have to either do one of these. You plan out your content for a year or no planning. Which do you think is
no planning?
No planning? Okay. You're going to roll with no planning.
Yes.
Okay. But I would say this.
For my preference. But
you've you've taken that step of figuring out, like you said, Twitter's your baby. You found a channel that resonates with you. So I think if you're listening to this and you haven't done that work, you haven't figured that out, doing the no planning can oftentimes mean no marketing.
Yeah.
Right.
100%. And really, for businesses, I think you should be scheduling about a third of content. If I had to choose, though, I'm going to go no plan. And I would recommend others do the same because people want your authenticity. The marketing of 2016 and 2017 even is gone. People want, and we've talked about how authenticity is bullshit, so, whatever. But people want to see you. They want to hear you. They don't care about your marketing and your sales. If you want to make marketing and sales on social, I think consistency and humanity are still your main game. So don't plan it. Just wing it. See what happens.
I think going back to our episode on that, authenticity as a concept is
hugely important.
Bullshit, right? Well, no. I mean, no. What I mean is, if you're just touting authenticity, but then you're not living it, I think it's more important for you to live it and embody it. I mean,
and
I guess
then
that
share content about it.
Of course, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I think that's a big.
I think that's that's always been my complaint about authenticity, is that idea that you're manufacturing it. So, oh, well, we made it more authentic by adding, and it's like, well, no, you didn't. I think that can become its own filtration system. So,
Just like
yeah.
how Elon is authentically all about free speech right now, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, he's a super authentic guy.
He really
Real,
is.
real authentic guy. Somebody who's never contradicted himself at all. So
No,
we love
no,
that.
no. If you want
Watch
to
our
learn
Elon
more,
episode.
check out the episode we just did about Elon's Twitter.
Yeah,
That was a fun one. And you know, it's one of those things that every week that goes by, it's like that there's just something else to throw
it's
on top of
changed.
the pile. Absolutely.
I
On a
know.
related note, then,
I
as we're
know.
talking about Twitter, are you Twitter blue? You're not Twitter blue.
No, no, no.